Hello and welcome to For Your Consideration. This is the first one we've done with a guest, so I've mixed it in surround sound like I did with most of our Prisoner podcast. So if you'd like to listen to it in that format, please head over to ufocast.co.uk/surround for more details.
Welcome once again to another For Your Consideration. This time it's Luke's choice, but we've also got what used to be classed as a number 3 when we did the Prisoner podcast. We have a special guest. We have somebody new. So before we start talking about, shall we talk about what it is first, or shall we introduce? Let's introduce.
We'll talk about what it is and then...
All right, okay. I'm Michael, the person
Yes.
who always talks, and then there's Luke, and then there's...
Yes. And we're doing Beau Geste. We're doing Beau Geste, the BBC version of Beau Geste. And the reason that we have a guest, this is the first time on For Your Consideration we have a guest, is because it was my brother that introduced me to it. So I thought, well, let's get him along. So John is here again. Long-time listeners might remember him from... you did Schizoid Man, I think, when we did The Prisoner.
That's correct, yeah.
So we're doing Beau Geste, which we first watched on VHS, I believe, John. Do you remember quite when you got hold of it?
I think I must have been about 12, 13, 14. Probably not quite as late as that, but yes, around about that time.
And how did you come across it?
So because our parents had bought lots of the BBC classic serials of Jane Austen and Trollope and various things like that, and this was in the same range, and it was a chunky double VHS cassette, which cost somewhere near the sum of about £20 at the time, which was an immense amount of money.
Oh, I remember them. I remember them being £20. You had to save
in
up.
the early 90s. And so that was possibly some sort of combined birthday present, even from my parents and from someone else, maybe. Yes, and so I wanted to get that because I'd read the book probably a couple of years earlier. So,
right. So you are the only person on this podcast who's actually read it.
Yep.
From what I understand, it's been adapted into films quite a number of times over the 20th century. Many of them have taken some liberties with the book. My understanding is that this is the most sort of faithful adaptation of it. When did you last read the book? Could you tell us kind of more about the adaptation from that point of view?
So I last read the book about 3 years ago, but from having read the book originally a number of times and then watching it, I haven't seen any of the other versions, but it is what I would call a proper faithful adaptation, where basically someone, all the words are in the book.
Right.
Mostly. So it is a proper adaptation of, well, all the words are there, we just need to dramatise this now, and yes, that might mean one or two slight changes or cutting of things or that sort of thing, but yes, it is basically what you read is then what you get translated onto screen, which is my ideal kind of adaptation.
Okay. So Michael, had you come across this before I threw it your way last month?
Weirdly, no. I've often come across... I spent 10 years working in the book trade, and in that time you always kind of pick up stuff by osmosis. You come across the classics. People discuss them at great length. People actually do discuss that kind of thing in the staff room. So I'd not actually gone down that road and embraced it at any point. I was aware of its existence.
Right?
No, I'd heard of it, but I'd also heard of the Laurel and Hardy stuff, or Carry On, Follow That Camel. So it was like one of those, not a zeitgeist thing. It wasn't like part of the popular culture, but it was definitely part of culture.
Yeah.
You were aware of, there was, I'm off to join the Foreign Legion. There was two Ronnie's sketches and stuff like that. It was always a thing. It was like, something's happened, I'm off to join the Foreign Legion.
Right.
It was just a standard thing. But I'd never ever read it. I'd never really seen it. And when you suggested it, I thought, yeah, why not? Let's go for it. I wasn't instantly going, oh God, it's just some sort of weird 1980s TV adaptation, God, it'll drag at all. So I was like, that'll be fine. And also, I knew from your description last time there was a lot of quality, not acting. There was a lot of quality people behind the scenes involved
Yes.
in it. Because I went to a Terrence Dicks talk once, and he said one of the things he was most proud of was the Sunday evening dramas that they did. They did some Dickens adaptations, and he mentioned those, and he said that was some of the work he was most proud of that nobody ever discusses. So I was kind of, yeah, cool. Let's go for it. Let's see this and see what happens.
So we're going to discuss this lesser known part of Terrence Dicks's career.
Well, yeah,
So,
exactly.
but this was something we weren't aware of at the time, John. I don't think we were really into kind of. I certainly wasn't aware of it until I picked it up recently and went, oh, let's watch that again. I remember it from when we were kids. I enjoyed it, and I'd forgotten it was produced by Barry Letts. I'd forgotten it was script edited by Terrence Dicks, and I'd forgotten it was directed by Douglas Camfield. Were you aware of that behind the scenes at any point?
Very vaguely, possibly. I think because it probably on the back of the video said one or two names, but I didn't really think of it in a Doctor Who context.
No. But I think we said Blake Seven was a Doctor Who adjacent production when we did that, and in many ways this feels like a Doctor Who adjacent production because of all those people from behind the scenes, and as we'll discover later, lots of people in front of the camera when we do spot the Doctor Who actor. And it's Douglas Camfield directing 8 25-minute episodes, which he'd previously done for The Invasion for Doctor Who. So it's sort of this is his thing, and it's also I don't know whether you knew this, either of you. He was commissioned to write a story for Tom Baker called Doctor Who and the Lost Legion, I think it was going to be called, which was going to write Sarah Jane Smith out by killing her off. And he just basically he ran out of time. And so he never delivered the scripts. So he was commissioned to write it, and it was basically going to be, it's probably set in a similar location to the second half of the story, some kind of fort in the desert, and rather than a Beau Geste type plot, there was going to be some aliens involved somewhere, but also the French Foreign Legion, and so he obviously loved this story way back. Didn't get to do his Doctor Who version, but then ended up doing this. And sadly, one of the last things he did, because he died in 1984, and he was going to direct the version of Prisoner of Zenda, which Terrence Dicks and Barry Letts also did, but he died before he could do it, sadly. But going into it this time, I was like, oh, it's directed by Douglas Camfield. I'm going to look out for visually how it looks.
So what you've got is fond memories of something that later on you come back to and go, oh, there's a reason I have fond memories of this, and it's connected with some other stuff that I wasn't even aware of. So in a sense, it just got better.
Yes, I think so. Yes, I mean, I think John and I had both discovered Doctor Who by the time we watched Beau Geste, but we just didn't make the link at the time. But I don't think it's particularly controversial to say that Douglas Camfield was one of the best TV directors that Doctor Who ever had.
It's possibly the least controversial thing anybody's going to be saying.
That's probably the least controversial thing. And this is after his Doctor Who career. And weirdly, I don't think. Actually, no, that's not true. They did employ him, didn't they? They employed him on Inferno. So Terrence Dicks and Barry Letts had worked with him before, and in fact saved his career. I don't know if you know the Inferno story, John. That he basically had a heart attack, which I guess was a precursor to what eventually killed him. But he had a heart attack during Inferno, and Barry Letts had to take over directing for the last 4 episodes, I think, but kept it quiet. Because he was like, if this gets out, then his career's over. So it's all credited to Douglas Camfield, but Barry Letts basically directed the second half of Inferno.
Right. I did not know that story.
No, yeah. So, but yeah, story-wise, John, tell us a bit about the plot, because we haven't really dived in. And what was it about the book that sort of attracted you to the story in the first place?
So the book itself, the reason that I got the book was because when we were going around one year looking for stuff to put on our Christmas list, we were in Blackwell's on West Street in Sheffield in the children's section, and they had all these puffin classics, which were beautifully. The covers on them are amazing. You can look them up online, and they're proper works of art. And there was The Prince and the Pauper, which I must have heard something about. I definitely wanted that. I mean, it's got a picture of these two doubles on the front, Edward the Sixth, as he became, and a double of his by Mark Twain, which tells the story of two boys swapping places. And then Beau Geste was one of these other classic books. And on the back, I think it talks about a stolen jewel and joining the Legion and stuff like that. And I must just have thought, oh, that sounds interesting. I'll put that down as well. And so I got given both books. Read The Prince and the Pauper first, which is an okay book. That was fine. But Beau Geste is so much better. So it was a happy finding. What you get at the start of the book is how the TV series opens, which is with a relief column arriving at Fort Zanderneuf in the middle of the desert, and the commanding officer rides around the fort and he's kind of calling up to the men, and no one's answering. There's no sentry on the platform. Nobody's answering. He's shouting at them. He's saying, "Why aren't you answering them?" And then he suddenly realizes that they're all dead. That all the men who are standing at the embrasures with their rifles ready, looking like they can defend the fort, are all actually dead. Which is an amazing sort of image, and sort of this terrible place where there's been this battle. But he's like, well, if everyone's been propped up, someone must still be in there. And so he tries to get one of the men to go in, this troublemaker guy, Rastignac, and he refuses to go in. He's not going to go into the House of the Dead. And so eventually a volunteer, the bugler, goes in. He climbs up outside of the fort, and they're expecting him to come and open the gates. And 10 minutes passes and nobody's done that. So you've now got another man has disappeared. So the commanding officer goes up, looks around, finds that as well as all the bodies propped up, looking like they're still ready to fight, that the commanding officer of the fort is dead, stabbed with a French bayonet, and there's another legionnaire who's been laid out properly on the floor. So he starts to look around. He can't find the bugler. He opens the gates, comes out, and then they start getting ready for a burial party, etc. They go back in again, and the two bodies up on the roof have disappeared. And so it just gets weirder and weirder. He's trying to figure out, well,
is the letter discovered? Because I know there's a letter discovered by the two people who arrive after the bugler, and that's what instigates the rest of the narrative. Is that actually discovered at that point in the book?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Because in the hand of the officer is this letter, which is a confession by Michael Geste to having stolen the blue water, and the.
So is that explicit in the book? Because in the TV version, that's not spelled out, is it? He just reads it and goes, oh, I know this place because I went there in the past. But does the book actually spill the beans at that point? Because I feel that's a mystery that you don't want spoiled too early in the narrative.
Well, no, I'm fairly sure it is.
Okay.
Because where's the?
Because I had wondered as well. Was that a creative license on the part of the adaptation? But you're saying actually no, that is how the book works. It's the whole like we begin at the end. And then you're like,
we begin at the end, yes, because in the book it's less coincidental, because the massive coincidence that this commanding officer of the relief column is well known at Brandon Abbas, where the story starts. He's actually telling the story to a British civil servant, and he knows more about Brandon Abbas. I think the Beau does have a slight connection, but not so much. But yes,
okay. Yeah.
because his friend who he's telling the story to is not that interested in it until they mention the Geste and
The family
Brandon
connections and
Abbott.
stuff. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's basically the setup for like that's the first half of episode one, really, isn't it? So that's it's kind of, and then you flash back to them as kids, and then the setup for the whole kind of stealing the jewel, which you have no idea, like why does he well also the adaptation kind of hints that he's the one that's stolen the jewel. Well, let's go back. So there's three brothers. There's Michael, Digby, and John Geste. There's Claudia and Isabel, and then what's the other
Thank
one?
God you've
Algernon.
remembered the names. Yeah.
Algernon.
Augustus.
Sorry.
Gusty.
Oh yeah.
Who's
Yes.
another cousin, but he's because the Jests are orphans.
They're orphans. Yeah.
Michael and Digby are non-identical twins, and then there's John, who's a year or two younger than them. So they've been taken in by Lady Brandon, as opposed to Augustus, who's from Sir Hector's side of the family and richer,
Right.
more well off, and so looks down on them. But they, frankly, probably do bully him.
Yes.
Back a bit.
They're not very nice to him, are they?
And there's the never seen uncle character.
They've never seen Uncle Hector, who is on the verge of coming back at any point, but never does. Which is it's slightly because the whole point of why the jewel gets stolen is sort of, well, we don't want to spoil that for people who haven't seen it, but there's a good reason that the jewel gets stolen and spirited away, which is revealed right at the end. And then the rest of it is basically them off to join the Foreign Legion, isn't it? That's the bulk of the story. Is each Geste brother follows his predecessors into the Legion. And what do they call themselves? Brown, Smith, and
Robinson.
Well, you also have that. I mean, obviously, we're not going to dissect the whole thing, but we've also got the foretelling moment where with they're playing in the little boats. And
oh yes,
one of them wants the Viking funeral.
Yes,
the burning thing, and you're like, well, I think we all know this is going.
You also so you have that foreshadowing, and then you also have, if you've been paying attention, because it's all in that first episode, isn't it? You have the foreshadowing of, he says, "I'm going to learn to play the bugle," and if you're kind of like paying attention, you're like, okay, they were very careful not to show us who the bugler was.
Yeah.
Although they do credit him as himself.
Do they?
Yes. When I thought that they should have used a Doctor Who trick and said,
with an anagram.
Bugler played by Tony Bull, for example.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
So yes, but you've got to remember that this was in the days of weekly television.
Yes.
Where by the next week you'd have forgotten most of what happened before.
Yes,
so
that's true. That's true.
How likely it is to stick in one's memory. And having read it when I was very young, you're like, you've like got this. You've got the opening bit, and then John Geste's narrative starts with this idyllic, apart from their parents having died, this idyllic childhood of where they went to Brandon Abbas for the holidays, and so you see episodes from that time that you're just like, oh yes, this is just stuff that's happening. When I was reading it, I didn't kind of go, oh yes, a fire. We had a fire before, these things are gonna go. So I think for the normal viewer, they're sort of nice touches in retrospect.
Oh yes, yes. No. It's like you say, it's episodic TV. The idea is that you can dip in and you have a sort of self-contained bit of the story each week. But it does have some sort of, it does sort of builds a sort of cliffhangers each time, doesn't it? You end with some jeopardy ish at the end of most of the episodes. It just doesn't have quite the punchy music.
It's not monster of the week, but
no,
there is.
But it doesn't. The music doesn't quite lend itself to a cliffhanger. It kind of stops, and then you're into the theme tune. To continue the Doctor Who connections, the desert stuff was filmed in a quarry in Dorset, I believe. Or yes, I think so.
That's what Wikipedia says.
There's a newspaper article from the time. Given when it was made, my best guess is Destiny of the Daleks. so Planet Skaro doubles for the North African desert. I think it works quite well. I mean, on one level you're kind of like, well, I know they're in a quarry, but the way that they've lit it, like it does feel like they're baking in the heat during the day.
Yes.
And the fact that they built that fort, they had to build that fort in the quarry, like it's all real. And then obviously, and the other thing, and I don't know whether you picked up on this, Michael. Douglas Camfield's last Doctor Who story was The Seeds of Doom, which was his first and only Doctor Who story that he shot entirely on videotape.
Yep.
And
that's the Crinoids one, yeah.
The Crinoid one, yeah. And he carries that one into this. So it doesn't have that traditional BBC, we've shot everything on location on film. And
I spotted that. I definitely spotted that.
So you can't tell kind of when they're going from studio into location because it's all shot on video.
Yeah. But by early 80s, the location video stuff has a soft sheen to it. That's definitely transferred over on this one.
Yes.
It's not as CSO hard-edged as it was earlier.
No.
It does definitely have an upgraded camera set, and they've clearly used the same cameras throughout. For me, the thing that it looked most like was Box of Delights.
Right.
Which had a very similar video feel.
Yeah.
Throughout, to me, I mean, memory's probably cheating. I don't know.
No, but I think that was another entirely kind of videotape production. It's just obviously Doctor Who didn't go fully videotape until Trial of a Time Lord. So Camfield's slightly ahead of the curve as far as,
and even
as
then
far
some
as
of the
goes.
model shots with 35.
Yeah.
And
the title sequence for this is made on film as well, so it's not an entirely videotape production. It's the only bit is the title sequence.
No, but obviously Camfield was ahead of the curve and liked using tape, or actually saw that as a preferred medium.
Yeah,
which works.
It does sort of. It's a cohesive whole, and obviously it was something it wasn't something that I was noticing at the time when we watched it as kids.
No, but you did notice it at the time when Doctor Who. You were like,
yes,
you were watching. I don't know, Visitation, and you were going, that definitely looks like something different. From they're outside of a barn, they're now inside of a barn, and that feels much more like a TV studio.
Yes,
I get that. And none of this felt like a TV studio. There was a lot of location work.
Yes,
the house was all located. I don't think there was. If there was studio stuff, I didn't notice.
I suspect the interiors for the fort would have been in the studio. The interiors for the fort would have been in the studio.
But the apart from there's a couple of bits where they shoot day for night outside,
yes,
which jars even now.
Yes,
but we all know how to do that, and it's a technical thing where you knock the stops down and everything. That's fine, but it's just there are shadows being cast by a moon that are very intense.
Yes.
But I suppose you're in the desert.
Yeah.
And that's just tiny little technical things. It looks great. I cannot fault how good it looks. And are you familiar... Right, this is going to sound like I'm being disparaging. I'm absolutely not.
Okay.
I need to say that straight off the bat. Are you familiar with Catherine Cookson's writing? And especially the ITV adaptations?
I'm aware of them. I have never read or seen any of them.
Catherine Cookson has... Yeah, go on, John. No? Right, okay.
No.
Okay, now, a lot of people look kind of down upon Catherine Cookson as a fairly formulaic writer. Now, the formula that she struck upon, we referred to as fortunately, unfortunately. It was like, oh, this has happened and it's quite a good thing. Oh, this has happened and it's a bad thing. Followed by, and this is a good thing. And that's her narrative structure. Is that repeated all the way through a narrative, and eventually you end up with a happy ending, or the good end well, the bad end badly. It's that kind of level of fiction, and that reminded me of this in the sense of she'd obviously read these books or read stuff around this when she was growing up, and had gone, that works, and that had gone into her as a system of storytelling, because it's kind of, oh, he's joined the Legion, he's all alone, oh, he's got some friends who are Americans, oh, they're going to be split up, oh, there's They're all in it together, but they're not, because he's a thief. He might lose his money, but he didn't lose his money because his friends are looking after him. It's a narrative structure that appeals and does work as episodic drama.
Yes,
very, very well, especially of this time, because I think the Catherine Cooksons that were made by Tyne's TV were of possibly 5 or 6 years later, but they were primarily made on film, because they were sold internationally and made ITV a bit of cash, which is why there's a whole series of those in existence, which is odd because they're not connected stories. They're all just Catherine Cookson TV dramas, and every single one is set as a different bit of a different historical period, a different thing, but they are primarily historical dramas, but they're all so different. There's a series set in 60s, 50s, 30s, they're all very different, but they have similar themes. And there's a lot of somebody might have stolen something, or you're out on the streets, or but they didn't really do it, and they did it to protect somebody else's honor. And there's a lot of themes which affect me, because there's a reason they were popular. They are very well produced, they're very well filmed, and they are very understandable and have linear narratives. There are flashback moments where you find out the truth about characters, but here it is. But there was I'm saying that she's taken aspects of this that worked really well. There's a reason Beau Geste has been made so many times by so many people, and it's not just because it's out of copyright and you didn't have to pay for it, as is the case with, like, there's a reason Shakespeare gets remade so much.
Would it have been out of copyright? When did PC Wren die, John?
Hang on, I actually looked that up this morning.
30s, 40s. I think it was originally published in
46. I think he died.
So the book wouldn't have been out of copyright when
not at
when
all.
this was made.
No. But I don't necessarily think it would have been sort of a valuable property. I think he probably went out of fashion very quickly. I mean, he wrote loads of books, and this is the only one that most people who know about books can probably name this one. And wouldn't have a clue about any.
His first couple of books are textbooks about being a teacher in India and how the Indian education system works. Because I looked him up on Wikipedia today, and it's odd.
Here's the interesting thing is the debate about whether his knowledge of the Foreign Legion is first hand, because what is agreed is that it's a very accurate representation of what life in the Legion was like. But there's scholarly debate about whether he had a 5-year stint in the Legion himself. What are you aware of, John, in terms of that conversation, and do you have an idea yourself?
Only from what I've read on Wikipedia.
Okay, right.
So I don't know, but I think the consensus seems to be that no, he didn't serve in the Legion. That doesn't seem likely, but that he had good sources.
Right.
I've got literally no problem with that at all. An author doing their research, possibly interviewing people or knowing people, and then putting their own narrative end on it, just works for me. I mean, I have so few issues with that. I know now is a really weird time, that if you are a writer, you're supposed to be telling a story that you're connected with, or you can tell your own story. But that takes away from the actual core of being an author. Sorry, I feel really passionate about this, because it's like actors play parts, but now you've got to get an actor of a certain type to be a certain type, and you're like, isn't that just narrowing the field more rather than expanding it like it appears to be? And being a writer is the same thing, which is one of the reasons that I like writing sort of fantasy novels, or sci-fi, because you can do, it's like, these are my stories just as much as they're anybody else's, and you can't take that away from me. But if I was to write a story, like I saw Ben Elton live, and he was telling a story about how he won awards for one of his early novels, and it made a lot of money, and there was adaptations made, and the main two characters are disabled, and he said, and it made him very famous as an author and allowed him to go on to have a better career. He said, but picture it now, I write the same story, I take it to the authors, to the publishing house, and they don't go, hey, you're the guy who wrote Blackadder, or you're the guy who did this and that, yes, we'll do a book. What they do is they come and go, could you just do a co-author job with this disabled person because it's a legitimate story to tell? And he said, and that actually happens. And I'm thinking, God, yeah. So I have no problems with an author doing research and selling it, but people like to be able to push a narrative, to be able to sell a story about an author going, yeah, he really was in the Foreign Legion. He can tell that story first-hand experience. Oh, yeah. As opposed to just, writing it down. And as long as you've got a ripping yarn, literally what this is, it works. Because he wasn't from a posh family. There was no duel. There was nobody saying anything. So he doesn't. That aspect of it is made up, regardless of whether he was in the Foreign Legion or not. Yeah. So what's the point? But just go with it.
I think with him, isn't the potential source of the rumor himself? Like,
I think so. Yes, or that he didn't deny that he'd been in the Legion. Yes, I think he was happy to sort of craft a legend around that in the same way that Captain W.E. Johns, who wrote Biggles, is not really a captain, or he had some, but as part of his persona was like, oh, well, maybe I was.
Maybe I was. Yeah.
That really wasn't a problem at the time, though. I mean, you've got men writing as women in order to appeal to a certain market, and that was never an issue. But now, if that was discovered, that would be a huge issue. It was like, oh my God, you've got a pen name but now that would be an issue because the apparent truth of you as an artist needs to be more upfront, more accessible to the audience. It's very difficult to publish an anonymous title without having some sort of marketing behind it. So they like that. Yes. It's like products, companies in America. If you go to the website, they tell you the story of the family who created it. And you're like, I don't care. I would like to either buy or not buy some peanut butter. I don't care about your long tradition of harvesting them using, chipmunks. Because it's just fiction. It's a fiction used to create something.
Let's face it, Michael. I don't think any of us in this podcast are the target audience for most mainstream advertising. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah, I must admit, I have thought about getting a T-shirt that just says, I am not your target audience.
But I like the one thing that I wanted to comment about the story, and I suppose I should say that it lived up to memories. This wasn't one of these things, because I haven't seen this since John had it on VHS when we were kids. But my wife and I are watching New Tricks at the moment, and Anthony Carff plays a sort of semi-regular character. And I thought, oh, hang on, I remember Beau Geste. I'll look it up, and I found the DVD for £5. So much cheaper
than the original
John
£20.
And obviously, inflation.
And on inflation, you're looking at like, God, that's the equivalent of paying £1 back then. Yeah.
But I mean, I think I would have been happy to pay more because it is a good story. I'm happy to validate it to my collection. The thing that struck me about it, and again, you're talking about kind of making this in the 80s versus making it now, is that there's no sort of comment on the story, right? There's nobody kind of moralizing about the story, right? People do stuff, and I suppose because the story is called Beau Geste, and the Geste brothers are sort of set up as the heroes of it, the story kind of sets them up as the heroes of the story. But largely the story is just left to unfold, and people do good things and bad things, including the heroes, in inverted commas. People make some bad decisions. I think is fairly safe to say that. The three of them running off the Foreign Legion is perhaps not the best idea. Given ultimately what happens to them. But the story's just left to unfold, and we're left as an audience to kind of make our own judgments about stuff. I thought it was interesting as well. The Tuareg are just faceless. Largely, they're just there to make the battle happen at the end.
Yeah, and they're Lord of the Rings orcs. Yeah. They are.
And there's no comment on like the morality of the French Foreign Legion, right? If you made this today, there'd have to be some kind of colonialist angle on it. And I'm not saying...
there is. No, there is. I need to stop you there. There absolutely is, because...
Okay, go on.
The central bad guy
yes.
in it they say, "Oh, haven't you heard the rumours?"
Oh, that's true. They do.
He
Yeah,
was
okay.
he was awful to the natives. Well,
Yes.
that's just not cricket.
Okay.
Is the closest you get to commentary on colonialism.
Okay. You're right.
But
There's
no,
that.
it's the fact that he was too bad even for the Belgians, who were the most notorious. I think, so they're not doing that, and they do say.
And I think there you've got the
about,
quote for the show. Too bad for the Belgians.
I think, and they do say something because they say, that the Tuareg harass the native population,
Yeah.
as well. So there is a bit of what are we doing here? Why is that? And you can now go, well, the French shouldn't have been there, but the Tuareg were not nice people either in terms of. They were robbers and thieves, and there might be some more nuance there as in terms of historically who they were, who they are now.
But as soldiers, you are taught that the enemy is a generic type in order to help dehumanize them so that you can shoot them without having any form of extra qualms.
Yes.
So,
yes, I mean, the conflict in the story is largely between those who want to mutiny because they don't like Lejeune, who is, let's just say straight out, fantastic performance. He really sells that this character is vile, and the conflict is there between those who want to mutiny against him and the Geste brothers, who are like, we hate him as much as you do, but mutiny is the wrong decision to make in this situation. And then obviously there is that the sort of climactic battle that it happens because it has to happen to kind of drive the story. But there's no other sort of, as I say, there's no broad commentary. It's just a story that's allowed to happen, and then we as the audience can make up our mind about kind of how we feel about any of the people in it.
There are definitely things there that are there if you want to see them, and I think that's across the board with Terrance Dicks's script editing. He likes tinkering and adding that kind of thing. But like you said, all the words are in the book. That it's been adapted as well as it could be, and there is class commentary because although the Geste brothers were adopted into the upper class and have done the classic stuff, they've done Oxford, they've done the Cambridge, they've definitely had that type of education, and this is an adventure to them. It stops being an adventure when people start dying. But it is an adventure to them in that sense. Mm-hmm. So, but the whole motivation for the narrative is let's be nice to the people in the village, the little working class people who aren't actually seen, just as much as the uncle isn't seen. Who?
Yes.
So that's the motivation for the overarching narrative.
Yes. Which that's a slight spoiler. We won't go into detail.
Sorry,
but that's true. That's the ultimate reveal at the end is that all this is no, it's fine. We haven't kind of gone into details, but ultimately, yes, the reason that Lady Brandon is a good person, and the reason that Beau Geste is, he has the best of motives for making off with the duel.
It was so well done that at the midpoint, I actually opened up my phone to look up spoilers to find out who had taken the gem. Right? And I stopped myself because I was going, no, you're actually enjoying this. Stop it. But I had opened my phone to look it up because I'm an idiot. Yeah. But I was like, right, okay, this is evidence that I'm enjoying this.
Yeah.
And I want to know what's happened. And spoilers, sweetie. But that was exactly where I went. So I am very glad I watched this. I am. So it was good.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah. Any comments on the direction? I mean, I noticed, now that I know it's a Camfield production, his use of close-ups is a hallmark of his work.
Camfield understood TV in the way that Hartnell understood TV. It's a close-up medium. Now, I know we've got big TVs now, but I watched it primarily on my tablet. I did watch it a few episodes on a TV while I was on the treadmill, but I watched it mostly on my tablet. So I had not a tiny screen, but a fairly small screen to watch it on, and it worked beautifully. Mm-hmm. It really did. Yeah. He's very good. It is his choice of angles. He does feel more like a director of photography because he gets the job done,
Yeah.
and there's an economy of shot, but nothing's there for too long. There's nothing lingering, but everything's there for the right period of time.
Mm-hmm.
It's very well constructed for me.
And he was well known for being military in his how he put stuff together,
Yes.
and that obviously comes across very well in the actual military stuff.
Yeah.
The battle is well drawn and well shot. Yeah. Any thoughts, John?
Yeah, I think as you said, I wouldn't necessarily have noticed it, but when you talked about it, it is the close-ups on the faces, and you've got some people with brilliant faces. I mean, Lejeune, facially wise, is great. Baldini, I love Baldini as like a character.
Yes.
As this typical, it ends up being a stereotypical Italian, but of how he's the first one that John meets, and he's very naive, and he's like, "Oh, I'll be your friend," and he's like, "Oh yes, here's someone who can show me the ropes," and then he's quickly found out to be a bad guy and who would rob him. If
The
he
brothers do not help themselves by feeding into each other's myth. It's like, well, you're the one with the gem. Well, am I? Because you're the one with the gem. Well, I've got it on a belt around my waist. And you're like, shut up. Just shut up.
That's true. But it's because it's a lark. It's a rag, isn't it? This is... Yeah. So, yes. And the rumour's already out there because Baldini's read the letter.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they don't reveal it at first. They just exaggerate it and make it crazy
because they think they're safe. They think they're amongst friends. So I get it. Yeah.
Do we? What do we think of the Americans? That's the you've got these two random Americans who I did not pick this up, but the implication at the end is that they're brothers. Is that?
I didn't get that.
No. Where did it say that?
So there's a
They've
bit
been
where
good pards.
Well, no, there's a bit
he
where
just says that you'd go back for your brother if it was your brother who was lost, but not that he's going back for his brother.
Oh, okay. I thought he was implying there that because he was basically drawing a parallel between him and Hank and the brothers, as if they were brothers. I
was thinking it was more brothers in arms kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're definitely not related.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Yes, I can see where you get that idea from, but they're not.
No, I was getting the whole Lenny and George thing from them, but obviously they were both people of the world, shall I put it that way, dodgy characters who'd ended up in the Legion.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, they're fun, stand-up characters who, happen to be on their side, as it were.
Yeah. Now, I didn't write it down, but there was an exceptionally weird line halfway through that I thought had to be from the book, and I'm just seeing if I've actually wrote it down. It's before they join the Legion. Oh, I wish I could remember. There's something about is it about trouser buttons or something?
After much mental wrestling, with which I lost a waistcoat button or something, or a trouser button.
Yeah, and you're going, God, it's a comedy, and I hadn't noticed.
That's in Digby's letter, because he's the fool, he's the comic. I love that line.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, let's go with it, right? So, but yeah, it's beautiful. It is very well crafted. I can see why the Sunday night drama was a thing, why these people worked on them for so long, and it worked. So thank you for introducing me to it, because I just didn't know.
One thing that struck me, the Beau Geste himself, played by Benedict Taylor, is it?
Yeah.
But he's the one that I'm least familiar with. Like, he's the leading man, as it were. It does a very good job, but obviously he has had a career, but he doesn't seem to have kind of hit the heights that some of the others have done. Do we know what happened to him?
No, that was always a mystery. When I looked him up later, he does. The only other role I know him in is in 13 for Dinner, which is the Peter Ustinov version of Lord Edgware Dies.
Oh, right, okay.
And he's the one who recognises that there's a problem with the judgment of Paris.
Right.
and that leads to a bad end for him. But
Yes.
yeah, it is odd that he was the lead and doesn't go on, and Anthony Karp obviously does lots of stuff. Jonathan Morris is in Bread, isn't he? That's his
Yes. Yeah.
big thing that he was in. So yeah, but then John Forgem as Lejeune, he didn't appear in much, does he? And you're like, well, he's a great baddie. He could have been other bad people, and I think was in Mean Machine with Vinnie Jones.
Wow. Okay. Should we do spot the Doctor Who actor? Because I said to you guys before we started that there's quite the comprehensive list. John, we'll go to you first. Who did you spot?
So I know that Pat Gorman's in it, who was a regular Doctor Who extra, but I wouldn't know what he
looks like. Okay. Okay.
And so then, apart from that, I'm sort of lost. The only vague thing is it's got a young Lucy Benjamin in, and was she in Doctor Who ever?
Yes.
So yes, somehow I know that. But was she under a different name in this anyway?
Lucy Baker was her name at this point.
Who is young Claudia?
Yes. Yes. And I think you spotted her as well, Michael. Because you texted me when you were watching this and you went, it's got her in it.
I did. There's a young Nissa and a young Tegan in the episode that's been made completely pointless by modern Doctor Who, where they try and take the Doctor's remaining regenerations, which you could have just turned up and gone, yeah, of course you can have all these 7 regenerations.
Yes.
That'll be fine. I've got plenty more.
Yes.
End of story.
Yes, it would have been fine.
Yeah.
Which is Mordred Undead.
Undead, yeah.
Did you also notice that Sian Pattenden, who played young Isabel, was young Tegan?
I did not.
No, I didn't realise that until I looked them up. So the two of them appeared in this together as young Isabel and young Claudia, and then a year later they are young Nissa and young Tegan.
Yeah. And she's basically famous now for being in EastEnders a lot.
And the person who shot Phil.
Well, yes.
In that storyline.
I did not know that.
Who else did you spot? Because I know you spotted some other people, Michael.
John Callis, who was also in the Crinoid story, as before mentioned.
But most famous as?
Most famous as playing Boise in Only Fools and Horses.
Only Fools and Horses, yes.
Yes.
As Corporal Dupre. But yes, he was clearly, again, so worked for Camfield on Doctor Who. He clearly remembered him because he's a fantastically horrible character in Seeds of Doom.
It's unconnected, but can I just say I'm currently listening to a brand new Big Finish, which is Harry Sullivan and Sarah Jane Smith meeting up years later, and she's got K9. And there's an episode where K9 is currently watching Only Fools and Horses as an introduction, and K9 actually says "lovely jubbly" at one point, and I pissed myself laughing. So that I'll try and find the sample for that because it's just brilliant. But anyway, sorry, it's a very
well. Also, on which note, I watched the episode of Blake 7 that John Leeson is in the other day.
The single campest bit of television ever created on television at any point in history.
It's not particularly camp, that episode, or is he in more than one episode? I'm talking about Mission to Destiny in season 1.
Oh, I was thinking. Sorry, I was.
Is he in another one? Anyway, I'll get to that when I get to more Blake 7.
I'm thinking of something else, possibly.
So yes, you spotted John Challis. Yeah, who else? You definitely spotted. Well, we talked about Jonathan Morris, didn't we?
Right. Okay. So Jonathan Morris is the person I always thought should play the Doctor at some point in his career.
Right.
Because there was a makeover program on TV where they got celebrities in to do a quick makeover, and he said, I just want to be a bit piratey for this, okay? Now, he came out basically dressed as a cross between Paul McGann and a swashbuckling hobbit, right? And he came out and I went, yep, that's the Doctor, we'll have him. And it just worked, right? And that was what stuck with me for a longest time. I have heard on the grapevine from when I worked in the theatre, he wasn't always the nicest of people to work with.
Right.
Which might, but I don't know if that's true or not. That's just what you hear.
Just what you hear.
He was brilliant in Bread. I was a very big fan, and you could see that there was a huge range to his acting. He did a lot of stage work. His Wikipedia is massive. He's always worked, which is great, and because people don't always not work and that sort. So that's what he was known as. But Bread was his big thing, his big sitcom.
Where was he in Doctor Who? Is the question.
Oh, he was in I don't know, Snake Dance.
Snake Dance. Yes. He was
I
in
always get the two.
I've
I
dredged
always get
that
them the wrong way around.
out of my old Doctor
Yeah.
Who television.
I get
Yeah.
them the wrong way
guide.
around. I always see Snake Dance or
Yeah.
the
So
other
he was
one.
in Snake Dance as Sheila. So the year after this,
With Martin Clunes.
with Martin Clunes. So the year after
Yeah.
this, he was in Snake Dance. Should we round out the Geste brothers with Anthony Carff, who was in Doctor Who twice. His very first TV role.
I know the second one.
You know the second one, okay?
Yes,
give
the
us
second one is modern Doctor Who.
Yes.
It's the Victorian Martian one.
Yes.
Mark Gatiss' trip to Mars.
Yeah.
And
Empress of Mars. As Godsaker was his character in that.
yeah.
But you don't remember his Doctor Who appearance, Michael?
No, I do. I did earlier. I just didn't write it down. Hang on. Did I?
It's a blink and you'll miss it. You'll blink and you'll miss it alongside John Savidant.
Oh, Visitation.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
if-
his first
because-
TV role was Doctor Who, where he doesn't make it past the first minute, and then his second TV role was this, where he's star of. Did you spot anybody else before we go through the rest of the list?
Everyone looked really familiar. They genuinely did. But I started going, were they in Doctor Who? Do I know them? And I started double questioning it. The big American, apparently, who I thought was possibly Gan from Blake 7 doing a voice, which she wasn't, was the original Rocky in Rocky Horror Picture Show on stage. So I started going, let's just walk away. So, Luke, bombard us with with Dougie's big list.
Let's pick up what John said. So Pat Gorman,
Yes.
So obviously there's lots of Legionnaires who aren't credited.
Yes.
Because there's quite a lot of them in some of the big scenes, but there are some that don't speak but did get a credit anyway. And one of those is Pat Gorman, who was an extra in Doctor Who from Dalek Invasion of Earth to Attack of the Cybermen. And he did the Invasion and Inferno for Douglas Camfield. So again, Camfield.
So the chances are, if there's any French Legionnaires who fall off from a great height, it's possibly Pat.
It's possibly Pat, yes. And he was in well over 100 episodes, so he's in lots of stuff. And then the others, I'm not going to give them all their appearances, but John Cannon, Les Conrad, Harry Fielder, and Barry Summerford all appeared as extras in Doctor Who over the years, from sort of Hartnell through to Colin Baker. And all of them, with the exception of John Cannon, had worked for Douglas Camfield before. So you can see he kind of had his band of extras who played soldiers. A lot of them had played unit soldiers for Camfield before. So he's like, I know who to go to for these guys because they're reliable and I've used them before.
Yeah.
And then let's quickly go through
there is
else.
marching involved, so yeah.
Yes, lots of marching. So Christopher Malcolm wasn't in Doctor Who, but I've put him on the list anyway. He played Hank. He is the pilot of the Snowspeeder that rescues Luke Skywalker and Han Solo at the beginning of early in Empire Strikes Back.
My God, if you'd asked me this last year, I would have actually been able to quote the line. But
I can't remember what his name is. I can't remember what he says. But
I think he's Echo 6 to Echo
something
Base.
like that. Anyway, so then let's quickly go through everybody else. Andrew Lodge, who was Glock. I can't remember Glock's role in the plot, but he's clearly he has a name. He was in The Savages as first assistant, so that's a missing episode. So you're not going to recognise him from there. Wendy Williams as Lady Brandon. Michael.
Now you challenged me to this one.
I did say.
I couldn't manage it.
She's Vira in The Ark in Space.
Right.
Which once I knew it was her, I was like, oh, it is. But initially, I didn't spot her at all.
Monoids.
No, The Ark in Space, not the Ark.
Oh, right. That's why I was like, really?
MedTech Vira. She's the one that's going to marry Noah, and then Noah gets turned into a big insect, and so
yes.
Sad for her.
After the exciting bubble wrap incident.
Yes, after the exciting bubble wrap incident. Nicolas Chagrin, who played St. Andre, was Quillam in Vengeance on Varos.
Okay.
Obviously, in Vengeance on Varos, he wears a mask across his face, and then when the mask gets taken off, he's kind of disfigured. So he wasn't looking like that. But he was in this. And I believe his father or grandfather composed music for William Hartnell at some point. Extra fact there. Jonathan Byrne, who played Kelowna, again, what a named person. Can't remember his role.
He was one of the Italians.
He's
He
one of
was
the
the
Italians.
Italian with the moustache who Baldini tries to get to do the robbery for him.
There you go. He was Silas P in the Happiness Patrol. Um,
Ah,
John Marino, who played Maris, he's the guy that went a bit nuts in the desert, wasn't he?
Who got Le Cathar and who
Le
deserted
Cafard.
him. Yeah.
Yeah. As Juan Moreno, he appeared in The Ambassadors of Death in one episode as I think one of the scientists in that. Um, Again, this is not a Doctor Who one. David Sumner, who played Major Henri de Beaujolais, was so you won't recognise this, John, but he was Colonel Craig in Kill Straker. There's a callback to the UFO cast for you there.
can I just say that
I
is
did not at all
simply
recognise
the
him.
most French name in history?
Only the yes, it is, isn't it? We've done the two kids. We've done those. Maurice Quick, who played Burden, was
Who's the butler at the very end?
He's the butler at the end. He was Gold Usher in The Deadly Assassin. So a very small but pivotal role when he gets given the wrong robes because Tom Baker's nicked his actual ones. And then finally, Robert Vowles, who was the guard corporal. He gets a credit but not a name, so I don't know where he appeared. He was a Gundan in Warrior's Gate, so you wouldn't have seen his face in that anyway.
Oh, Warriors Gate's great.
And then, as we said before, you've got behind the scenes Barry Letts, Terence Dix, Douglas Camfield, all making it happen. So as we said, a very Doctor Who adjacent production. The other thing, John will remember this. I hadn't realised in that series of classic things, Pickwick Papers was one of theirs, and that was one that John and I grew up with.
That's the one Terence discussed. Definitely.
With Nigel Stock, he of Do Not Forsake Me, My Darling, and Time Flight, playing Mr. Pickwick. And again,
And Watson, yes, indeed.
I'm sure if we watched that again, I'd spot lots of Doctor Who actors in that, no doubt. Any last thoughts before we wrap up and Michael picks next time?
So the music and the title sequence, I love that. I assumed that the music was by Geoffrey Bergen because it sounded quite like Narnia, a bit of it, and then I found out it wasn't him at all, and it's someone called Stefan Deutsch or something like that. But it sounded very like Geoffrey Bergen.
Well, it's interesting you say that because Douglas Camfield used Bergen for his last two Doctor Who stories during the Tom Baker era. So I suspect if Bergen wasn't available and he wanted it to sound like Bergen, he may well have gone out of his way to find somebody who sounded like Bergen.
Yes, and I think it works because when I had the VHS, it was only in two parts because they'd edited it together. So I think the first bit is up until they leave for Fort Zandernerf,
right?
Which is probably longer than half, and then you have the rest. And I think that works better than the kind of constant cutting with some of the cliffhangers are slightly.
I had forgotten that it had been edited into an omnibus.
So because the end closing music is not very familiar to me because
you didn't see it very often.
That.
You only heard it twice.
So you only saw it once, maybe at the end, and then you were probably like, "Oh, I'm going to take the video out so I can put the next part in anyway."
Right.
So
when did you pick up the DVD yourself?
Maybe after I re-got the book and read that. So maybe I got the DVD about 3 or 4 years ago.
Right. Okay.
And then I had watched it once and then watched it again now.
I had entirely forgotten that we hadn't had the episodic version before. Again, very Doctor Who-y, omnibuses on VHS. Yeah.
So yes, and I think with the so I think the way that because in the book the bulk of the narrative is by John Geste, so it's from his first person perspective, which I guess you kind of see a bit because he's the one who stays and so you follow him into the Legion and there he meets up, but it's not quite as clear. And so you do have that. The initial bit is clear that he's not stolen it. We're not in unreliable narrator bit here. And if he had stolen it, well, why would he go off with the others? And so you do have them, so like Michael leaves and then him and Digby are like, well, it can't be him and it's not us. So Who is it? Who's he
And-
shielding? Is it the
and
girls?
as-
Well, no, it can't be the girls, but then it must be Gussie, but why would he shield? So you have a lot of that, and then Digby goes... and
That
then
was
he
the
goes.
point. That was absolutely the point where I was like, I'll just find out who did steal it, and it won't upset. And I was like, no, don't do this. Don't do it. Don't spoil it. And I was like, oh, well, no one else will know. I'll know.
And something I noticed, which I would have to check the book, but which is but which I love, is that when the blue water has been taken, and Aunt Patricia's asking them if they've taken it, like John says, I've not got it. Someone else says, I haven't taken it, and Michael says, I've not taken the blue water, because he's telling the truth. He's specifically, according to his code, which would be, I shouldn't tell lies, he says, I haven't taken the blue water.
So he's being very specific.
He's being very specific, and I think that's deliberately done, because...
That's absolutely something Terence Dix would have made sure was like... in there.
And so I noticed that specifically, because I think because as being a fan of detective stories...
Yes.
I love it when people tell the truth in a way that conceals what the truth is.
Yes.
Like that sort of clue. And yes, so reading it when I was younger, I always found it very emotional at the end, because he's died, and then you find out what he's done. But it wasn't until maybe a third or fourth reading that I got the point that Uncle Hector never came home.
Yeah.
And therefore, it was all unnecessary.
It was all for nothing.
I was completely convinced that Uncle Hector was off with his Batman, whatever, somewhere else. I totally gone. Uncle Hector is he's living his best life with some. That's why I'd never come home, and that's kind of well. There's a whole thing about the Hollywood coding, where it's certain characters. If you want to see certain things,
Yes.
it's there for you to see. And just at the time, I was thinking, perhaps, probably not, perhaps though. And then he just didn't come back. And I'm thinking, did he die? Did he fake his own death? Well, we'll get back to you on that one. Yeah.
Yes. But it does. The end. I think the ending is very abrupt, isn't it? You know, with her just going, well.
Oh no, that's a very Catherine Cookson thing as well. It was like, right,
It's a-
all the
it was a-
narrative's been sewn up. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Yes. He's just like, oh, it was a sort of whiplash, really. Like, oh, it's over now. But I guess that fits in with what I was saying earlier about the fact that you're just left
Yeah. It's
with your thoughts
very
on the narrative
bingeable,
without any.
and this is the sort of thing that should be on a version of iPlayer or a version of Netflix, where someone can binge classic stuff, and you don't, because if it's new to you, it's new. Just because it's in 3x4 or it's not in ultra high def 8K, burn the back of your retina's vision, it's like, yeah, it's a good story and it'll keep you going. That should exist as a thing.
Yes.
As a streaming service, but
There's not enough of us, Michael. There's not enough of us who want to watch it, sadly.
No, but there's enough. We've got listeners. We've got people who agree.
We do. And yes, do. I'm terrible at responding, so I'm just going to say to our listeners who got in touch after our last episode, thank you for writing in. I'm sorry for not responding. We do appreciate your feedback. We do read it all. We're just lousy at replying.
That's right. I was the same. I've had feedback from the Ulysses thing I'm doing at the minute, and I should be replying more to people. I should.
So, Michael, what are we doing next time?
Right. I messaged you and I said, okay, I've got 2 lined up for next time. I've got something with Michael J. Fox or something with Ian McKellen. Which do you prefer? And rather helpfully, you give me no clue whatsoever.
I
like
said,
both.
well, I like both of them, you know. So
yeah. And I've spent all day working out which of those 2 I'm going to go with. So, I'm going to go with the one that I'm not sure you'll love.
Okay.
You may have not particularly good reaction to this one.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It won an Oscar.
Okay.
And it's got Ian McKellen in it.
Okay.
and a red grave. It's Gods and Monsters. It's the story of the man who directed the original first two Frankenstein movies back in the 30s. It's a biopic.
And it's called Gods and Monsters. When did it come out? I've never heard of this film.
Before Lord of the Rings.
Right.
Possibly before he did his... it was after Richard III, but before the X-Men.
Right.
It was like, who's this Ian McKellen chap? It's like that. But
okay.
It's phenomenal. Right. And I think the guy's from Sheffield.
Okay.
Originally, and he moved to America. I will send you a copy of it to watch. And I saw it at the Tyneside Cinema and was just like, because I'm a huge fan of the Universal Monsters.
Yes.
And I was considering making you watch some of the original black and white movies instead, right? And then I thought, hang on, one film he probably hasn't seen is the making of the movies. Because, it's not Ed Wood, but you could compare it quite easily because it's anyway. I wouldn't go on it, but it did win an Oscar.
I've seen about half of Ed Wood, and I just gave up because I was not enjoying it. So
yeah,
if it's like that, then maybe I won't enjoy it. But if it's if it's different enough,
the book that Ed Wood's based on is actually called "Look Back in Angora," which is the single best title for a bio. It was like, why didn't you go with that? And then you couldn't because you couldn't sell it because people would be going, is it about jumpers? What? So that is Gods and Monsters, Ian McKellen. It's got Vanessa Redgrave, and it's also got one of the best actors America has ever produced in it. But I'll let you watch that yourself.
Okay. And are there any Doctor Who actors to spot?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Apart from a Redgrave being related to a Redgrave.
Well, I mean, obviously, and Ian McKellen himself.
And Ian McKellen himself, who was the voice
of the intelligence, yes.
Of the intelligence, yeah.
Right, okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah, which we've already done. There might be. I'll have to look it up. But I remember absolutely loving it. It's very up my street.
Okay.
And but you may hate it, and that's fine.
If I hate it, then we'll do it. We'll do Crime Traveller next time.
Sadly, that's a deal. So I'm just off to weep now. Right. Thank you very much for introducing it to us.
We are doing Crime Traveller at some point, Michael. We will do Crime Traveller at some point.
And I had something I was going to do is Revenge, but I can't remember what it was.
I can't remember what you said. You had something lined up in case I brought Crime Traveller out of the vault. Anyway, well, thank you, John, for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
If we stray into your area of expertise again, I'll get you on.
Perfect.
So thank you for being here. I will say goodbye and leave the final word as ever to Michael.
Be seeing you.